This is Rihole from Steam Power, and welcome to another edition of International Women's Month. Today, we have Dr. Hephzi Tagoe, who is a research scientist with a PhD in skin biology, a multiple award-winning science communicator, business owner, charity director, and freelance science writer. She is the regional chair for the Royal Society of Biology, Bedfordshire in Essex and Hertfordshire branch, and a 2019 Winston Churchill Fellow. Welcome, Dr. Hephzi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. Let's begin. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, this question is always tricky because you're not quite sure where you're supposed to be starting from. But basically, just in the little introduction that we've beautifully shared about, summarized nicely about me. So I do have a background in skin biology, which is what my PhD was in. But prior to that, um, I do have a master's in pharmaceutical science and a degree in biomedical science. And so I progressed, I suppose, from biotechnology through to pharmaceuticals before specializing in skin biology through the PhD. But then in the midst of all of these, I found my purpose in the whole scientific world. And so now I am involved a lot more in science education and science communication through my charity, GH Scientific, which I co-founded with my brother. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
All right, wonderful. So what inspired you to begin this journey? Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Was there any event or any person within your childhood that inspired you to start this career?
Yes, so I always like to say science chose me as opposed to I chose to do science, because although I live in England at the moment and have done for quite a few years now, I grew up in Ghana, where I was born. My early years were spent there, and our educational system is slightly different in that um, you sort of get selected to do certain subjects based on your, as for what's perceived as intellectual ability. So usually, the kids who are top of the class get put into science. So I didn't really have a choice in the matter. But growing up through education, being chosen to do science, it wasn't something I struggled with. I didn't have an issue with it. I did enjoy it. And so I just stayed along that path. And when I transitioned over to England for secondary school, it was the only subject, I suppose, I knew how to do. And so I chose my A levels in all three sciences and math, and just went along the path that way.
Mhm. Were
Having
you the only girl when you chose those three science subjects?
not in the school that I was at. No, it's funny actually, because being the only girl being chosen to do certain science things is not something I became aware of until I was an adult. And so I'm pretty sure I was not the only girl, but if it was an issue then I did not even notice. But I wasn't the only girl, I'm sure I wasn't. I am the only girl in my family though. I do have three brothers.
Mhm.
And so
Were
but it
you under
has
pressure?
not at all.
Mhm.
Not at
What was
all.
what were your parents' attitudes when you went home? So I'm going to do science. What did they say?
They loved it actually. And again, because from what age would this be? Probably what we call key stage 3 here, about 9, 10, when you're having to, I suppose, prepare for our equivalent of the GCSEs. Um, if you're coming home with top grades from school, you're automatically going to be put in science anyway. So yeah, none of my parents are scientists. Actually, funny enough, no one's got science background. Actually, my granddad was a biochemist, but it wasn't where the inspiration came from. It's really, I was chosen to do science. I did science at secondary school, and so naturally progressing to sixth form is
Mhm.
science that I was going to choose to do. And when I had actually the first decision, I suppose, really came in when I had to make my university choices, because
Mhm.
again, from my education in Ghana, when you pick to do science, it's usually going along the path of doing medical science. So that is what I pretty much knew about my science options available to me. And when I came over to England, I didn't get into medical school. And so I had to find an alternative, which is where I then started looking into other career options. And I was told about biomedical science, and that offer was presented to me as I suppose a stepping stone to get into med school if I didn't get in after A levels. So the idea was you do biomedical science and then you can apply to do postgraduate medicine, which is how that biomedical science came in as a career choice anyway. However, once I was in the course, um, I then started reading a bit more, started learning a bit more about what other options were there. And then I found out that there are two routes that you can take with biomedical science. You can either take the registration route to become a registered biomedical scientist, most of who tend to work within the NHS, or you can do the standard biomedical science, which then opens up doors to work in any of the biological science or biotech fields. And it was really when I got to my third year and I had to do a research project. And I got the opportunity to work in an excellent lab over at Cambridge in an immunology department at the university over there. And it was my first, I suppose, real practical hands-on experience of research. And I thought, actually, so there is more to science than just going to medical school. I quite enjoy this. This is quite fun. So I was there for about 6 to 8 months over a summer period. And then during the time that I was doing my final year thesis writing.
Do you think that kind of working your way out could have been shortened if you had proper guidance in the form of a mentor?
100%, 100%. And it's these experiences that have informed GH Scientific and why my brother and I set up in the first place. And a lot of the things that we do is tailored around that, because I have changed careers so many times. And it's fine, people do change careers, but I kept changing careers because wherever I went, I knew it wasn't where my skills were best set. It wasn't what was meant for me to be doing, which is why, and because I didn't really have anyone to direct me, I said, so what are your interests? What are you good at? Where would you want to see yourself in the next 10, 15 years? The sort of thing that a mentor could have, questions that a mentor could have raised. And perhaps, your parents can do the best they know. They didn't, so the kid, my mom is a judge now. She was a lawyer then. My dad was in the armed forces with a business background. And so none of them were scientists, right? And we were in a different country. So there's only so much that they can advise. And funny enough, you speak to aunties and uncles, and everyone my dad was talking to, everyone but one actually. One auntie recommended looking into being a clinical research associate. Apart from her, everyone said to go into nursing and healthcare because of job security. And I'm like, well, but how's that
very
different?
Stereotypical. That's very stereotypical.
Yeah,
that's
everyone.
where you find most women, isn't it?
Yes. And funny, like the only reason I did not go down that route was because they said I wasn't old enough. So at the time that, everyone was saying, she's got to go take care to nursing school, job security, etc., etc., etc. So, Dad thought, well, they've been here way before us. This is what they're advising. Let's go do that. So we sent in the form, but I wasn't quite 18 yet. And so I got rejected. They said I had to be 18. And I wasn't 18. So I had to find a plan B.
I know that you went to school in Ghana, but do you feel that in Ghana is preparing young people within the STEM field?
Now. I mean, no, I wouldn't say now, because it's always been, again, it had never been selective in terms of girls and boys in my experience in Ghana. It was a case of if you are academically excellent, then you would be put into science. It didn't matter if you were, male or female. If dynamics changed post-university, I was not in the country then to know the challenges that the women in science face. Having said that, we have a lot of high-profile women in STEM in Ghana, so I don't think it's as much a major issue as perhaps it is in the West. I could be mistaken because I don't live there as much as I try to keep up with the conversations that go on. I know, a lot of amazing women in science, and in fact,
sorry, continue.
No, I was going to say, in fact, one of the biggest science programs in the country, which is celebrated, all across the country, is the National Science and Math Quiz, where all the secondary schools compete, and it's on national TV, and it's been going on for years. all the quiz mistresses have been ladies, and it's a high profile role in the country. And then one lady was in the role for ages, and then she was taken over by another lady. So we have a lot of women in science and STEM who are celebrated in the country.
You were mentioning earlier that grades played a major, gave you an advantage over those that didn't. Do you feel that grades alone should be the determining factor as to what a child should do?
Not at all. Not at all. Because again, even I suppose people learn in different ways. Okay, and so just assessing based on ability is not the best. And even having said, like when I transitioned from Ghana to the UK, I really struggled with sixth form because I'd always been top student. But then, and it was because our curriculum was very theoretical. And I'm sitting in a physics class during A levels, and you're talking about, telephone wiring and circuits and series and parallel. And I'm thinking, okay, now you lost me. I have no idea what you're talking about. So it was a very different style of learning. Nothing to do with academically, I suppose, inclined at all, because I did struggle. And in as much as I tried to catch up and understand. I mean, biology was easy because it is what it is. So wherever you go around the world, biology is going to be biology. But when it comes to, practicalities, I'm going to mix this chemical with that chemical. What reaction am I going to see? Well, I had never seen those reactions because I learned them theoretically. So putting things like that in front of me, that's a challenge. So I don't think it's a hindering block at all. It's about, reasoning and creativity and your thought process.
And how was your years at university? How was it like?
University, I suppose you start discovering a lot about yourself. During our university, again, I'm very focused on my end goals, so not very distracted at all. But it was an interesting place. It was, again, first exposure to other science areas. Even then, it was still limited. Okay, so you might get to know about hematology and immunology and animal science and the other areas that were available to you, but it was still careers within, I suppose, research areas or the biological sciences or biochemistry sciences. But no one, it wasn't until I think I'd finished my master's when I started working that I started looking into pharmaceutical science. And that was only because the company that I was working for were doing contracts for pharmaceutical companies. I'm like, okay, so what do the pharmaceutical companies actually do? Then you start looking into that. And then I went to do a master's in pharmaceutical science. And then you start working for a pharmaceutical company and you realize, actually, this is not what I want to do either. Only because, again, people are different. Working in industry is very, I'm going to use the word robotic because you have standards, let's say you're manufacturing an antibody. Wherever it's being used, that specification, that formulation has to be the same every single time because people are using this for the experiments. And so you're literally on robotic mode. Add A plus B plus C plus D, package it in a box, case closed. And I can't work like that for the rest.
That there's a little bit of lack of creativity.
Exactly. And I found that is what was, in as much as it was, you learn about team working and you've got excellent colleagues and you get to read about some science based on what you're doing. It just felt very monotonous and it's not my style at all, which is why I kept seeking more and keep wanting to, what else can I go study? And then you did pharmaceutical science with management studies. And then it's like, okay, what else can I do? And it's like, And the PhD, funny story, the PhD, right, only came in because when I started working, I realized that a lot of the people in senior positions have PhDs. And it's a conversation that is not really talked about much in the science field because you hear a lot of people who would say, oh, you don't really need a PhD to, do this or do that. But really you do. And especially when you're a Black woman or a Black girl. And it's either you're spending years in service to grow up the ranks, or you get a qualification to give you that extra boost. And if you're a minority, spending years in service to get you that rank is even going to disadvantage you even more, until you get your lucky break. And so I thought, okay, I guess I'm going to do a PhD then. So and then you finish a PhD, you're like, actually, this is not what I wanted to do anyway.
So the PhD is like a green card then.
It just seemed that way. I mean, as a young scientist trying to establish myself and progress through the writing industry, that is what it seemed like. And I had always been good at what I do, and I had worked in places where, you know, you are having conversations about pay rise, you're having conversations about I can do more than what you're allowing me to do. And
Mhm.
you know, you do get told, you know, well, this person is in this position because, you know, they've got a PhD, they've got, so I'm
So
like,
what
okay,
are
I
you
guess.
doing now? Because I've been seeing that you're sharing the accomplishments of other scientists, female scientists. So what is your role within science?
So at the moment, I am 70% science communication. And so I spend and education. So what geoscientific actually does, we work with young people, mostly from underserved communities, to one, we do a lot of work on careers, at least every quarter we put on career options. And the career options that we put on is specifically on alternative science careers. And so we have done career options in the medical sector because a lot of the people and the families that we work with are BME, and you know, they do want to go into those career sectors. And so we do put those careers on, but we do careers in the science journalism and science communication. And it's again funny that I spend a lot of my time on science communication at the moment, but I only got to know about science communication as a career option post MSc, because I attended a life science careers conference, and then someone came and spoke about it. I'm like, okay, this seems to be more exciting and diverse and something you're not going to get bored doing, because there's so many things you can do with that. And then I started looking into it, and naturally it's where my skills were supposed to be.
Wonderful. So in concluding, what is it that you are reading and what would you recommend any young person to read?
And it's not going to be about science at all, okay? Because again, back to you, a lot everything that we do is about improving social class. And so the one book I would recommend for young people to read is Rich Dad Poor Dad. Nothing to do with science. I don't know if it's a book that you've read, but it's
Yeah, I've
basically
read
it talks about, yes, that is one
it.
book I
In my life,
recommend.
I have read that book.
Yes, you know, and yes, nothing to do with science. Sorry, everyone listening, but it was again an eye opener for me. And I had already branched into business before I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the business that I do have aside the charity, I have a learning center in Basildon, and we support a lot of young people from the BME community, again to do with education, options, choices, and just saying to parents, there is a lot more for your child than healthcare options, you know. So based on my experiences, that is what we do. But Rich Dad Poor Dad basically talks about what the, you know, poor and middle class teach the kids about money that the rich don't. You know, it's just the whole mindset
Yeah.
conversations. There's nothing wrong with wanting to earn six figures a year. It's not about greed. It's not about, you know, there's more to life than, you know, it's at the end of the day, everyone wants to be comfortable and provide the best for their families and leave legacies. And I don't want my kids having to worry about tuition fees at university, because thankfully at the time I went to university it wasn't £9,000, so I didn't have to take a student loan because my parents were able to afford that for us, you know.
Mhm.
And I think we need to have, especially in the BME community, need to have a lot more of these conversations about wealth creation and not necessarily entrepreneurship, but anyway, let me not digress from the
Yeah,
conversation.
I think what you're talking about is really important, but that's another topic in itself.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
The purpose, I think people are going to feel inspired, motivated, and empowered after what you said. And that's the purpose, because we want to share good news and show, diversity in a positive light. Sometimes diversity is shown in the negative, and we need to change that. We are all about changing narratives. We are a social enterprise, and we want to open doors to diversity in STEM, because many young people in our community have the mindset that, look, that place is not for me, I better but go there. And that mindset itself is being controlled by stereotypes, by the media, and also, other people's journeys can also influence your choices in your career choices. So
Yes, yes.
with your interview and the interviews that we've done before, we want to see, or allow people to see that, that science comes in many shapes, in many ways, with different styles, and you can have a wide variety of personality. You don't have to all be the same type of person.
It's really needed, and we do need a lot more role models and mentoring, more mentoring than role modeling, even so,
Yeah.
because yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.